What's up, wrestling fans? It's Joe Cronin, and today we have WWE Hall of Famer, one of the most respected legends in the business of professional wrestling. He has a new book called Slobber Knocker, My Life in Wrestling. He will be in Boston, Massachusetts this weekend at the Laugh Factory, December 16th. More importantly, he's also the man who introduced me to my favorite barbecue sauce of all time, good old JR, Jim Ross. How you doing, Jim?
I'm good, Joe. How you doing?
All right. How was that for an intro? I try not to go too over the top.
Liked it. I liked it. I'll have to remember that one.
All right. So one of the first things I want to talk about with you is when I was 9 years old, you were at WrestleMania 9. You were making your, to me, debut in WWF, one of the first times I ever heard you. The first thing I noticed about you was the accent. Things were a little bit different. Most of the guys that came in the WWE kind of had a different, a different tone, a different way of speaking. You brought more of almost a kind of a realism to the sport while still having some of the fun that WWF likes to have. What was that like, kind of, to me, breaking the mold of what Vince McMahon usually has for an announcer?
Well, I never really thought about it in those terms, even though I fully realized early in my broadcast career that chubby guys with Oklahoma accents and then subsequently with 3 bouts of facial paralysis in the form of Bell's palsy are not supposed to make it in broadcasting, or at least on video. I wasn't a pretty Sports Center anchor or whatever. I was just me. I never played the role of somebody. I just played myself, basically. But I never really thought of it in those contexts. I just looked at it as every day with what I was dealing with, a challenge to get to the next level. And so I kind of always worked out of a little state of fear, probably some anxiety, and I just, never looked at it as the negative that some did. And I know that my little chubby face and my Oklahoma accent, probably kept me from getting auditions for some gigs. But I felt like all along that I found my calling. I found what I wanted to do. I'd worked 19 years to get to WWE, and when I finally arrived, it's been worth every minute of those 19 years on that journey.
And with Vince McMahon, in coming into the WWF, was there something at the time, that first go around with WWE, with where Vince McMahon liked about you a lot or disliked about you? Did you ever know that there was one thing that Vince loved that you did, and was there something that he didn't like that you always did that was that's just what you are and who you are, and he had to accept it?
Well, I think like any other producer, my accent to some degree had to be addressed. In other words, lighten up on it a little bit or work on your diction, things like that. And that's just getting better at what you do.
Right.
Heck, I don't think I'm as good as I can be yet. I've never been happy with my work. I don't listen to very much of it. I don't watch very much of it. So, but I think he always especially loved my enthusiasm. He loved my passion because he saw it wasn't prefabricated. It was real. So
right.
I think he liked my realness. And then we had to kind of refine what I needed to do. And sometimes, to be honest with you, Joe, I was egocentric and resisted the teachings and the tutoring. That's my fault. But those are lessons learned on a journey. And so I don't have any ego to say, oh, no, I was great from the day one. I needed work even after 19 years of the journey. So, but Vince loved my passion, and I brought that every day. I just couldn't help it. He said that in my Hall of Fame package, that he can't help himself, and I couldn't.
Right. Well, it worked out pretty awesome. I mean, all I ever hear is that, greatest announcer ever. So it's funny to hear you say, you're working on your best stuff ever, but it's like everything you do is great. Now, recently, I know you did the Mae Young Classic and all that, but I wanted to back up a little bit to Wrestle Kingdom 9 because I recently had the privilege of calling a show actually with Matt Striker. I learned a lot from Matt Striker in that couple hours. What was it like at Wrestle Kingdom 9 working with Matt Striker? What was the chemistry between you two like?
Oh, that was good. I like Matt. Matt's a friend of mine, and I've known him since he was in WWE. He's a very smart guy, very well read, as you know, and he has a good business sense. And I enjoy working with Matt. So going to ringside and doing Wrestle Kingdom 9, can be a little unsettling because you got a new crew. Most of them don't speak English. You got a new partner. You got a new product. You're flying from Oklahoma to Tokyo, and it's the old deal. You can't get there from here type thing. And so Matt at ringside for me was a relief.
Yeah.
Because he was a commodity that I knew, and I didn't have to worry about how that was going to be. So I thought he did a good job, and I work with Matt anytime. He's a very smart guy, and I like Matt. I think he can help a lot of promotions in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's definitely a smart guy, and it's weird. He's got a bunch of different levels to him that, and he can be funny at the same time and kind of throw you off. So, I tried to I tried to learn on the fly, but videos have been coming out recently about with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, and they're doing this really good promotion right now of Wrestle Kingdom 12 here. What do you think of what Jericho's doing with a guy like Kenny Omega, and how will that impact the business this year?
I think it's old school booking, Joe. I think it's a very sound, fundamental, old school booking. I think that probably some people thought because of the geography involved that when Jericho did the original incident with Omega where he got him in the ring and bloodied him up, I think people thought, well, that's what they're going to do to take us to Wrestle Kingdom. Then all of a sudden, at the press conference, they do another piece of business. It's all rooted in old school philosophy, without question. And so I thought they're right on the mark with it. Chris is on my podcast this week, and he called me Monday evening from Japan, and Monday evening our time, Tuesday morning his time, and it was a very open and really, I thought, a graphic discussion of promotion, why he did it, the motives, all that stuff. He's really invested himself emotionally in this match, and I'm looking forward to calling it for Access TV, without a doubt. They should have a classic, and it'll be hard to follow, but that's Okada and Naito's challenge, not mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very excited, as everybody is, about it. How about the Access TV deal? When did you hear about that? That's something that I didn't know was going to happen until, I would say, last week or so, that it's going to be just on television for everybody. It's going to be early, but...
Yes, I knew that they were working on it for a long time. They, meaning Access TV, to work with TV Asahi, a great company, by the way, and get the turnaround time narrowed down. So Josh Barnett and I are scheduled to voice those shows over on the 4th, our 4th. The 4th and 5th, and then the show's going to air on the 3-hour special going to air on the 6th. So we won't be that far behind the curve. I know some people like to watch stuff live, and I understand that, and I respect that. But Josh and I will give the fans a different perspective, not a better perspective, but a different perspective and presentation than will my friend Kevin Kelly and his partner Don Callis. So it's a big opportunity, especially for New Japan, to build their brand in North America. I think Access TV has done amazingly well to help that company create more name identity in North America. And, we're going to have another live event out in California in March that we'll be doing, and then I think another one in July. So it's a growing brand. And, look, if it hadn't been for Vince McMahon, I wouldn't be there. Because I signed with WWE the Friday night before WrestleMania this year, and I barely remember it because it's so soon after my wife got killed, about a week, 10 days. And so Vince has blessed this deal from the get-go. And I'm about to sign this week. I will sign the formality, the paperwork of another year with Access TV. That'll take me through 2018. And that's thanks to Vince and WWE management for, letting me do that because they had my rights.
Yeah.
And so I have great respect for Vince in all ways and have for years, always. But him doing that for me was, it was more about his personal relationship with me than a business deal. So I'm really happy that I got to do it, and it's a fun gig, man. I enjoy going to LA about once a month and working with the Access people. They're good people, and the product's solid, and I enjoy it a lot. There's some great stars that are really in their prime right now, and so it's a good time to be a wrestling announcer in that brand and in any of them. I mean, there's so many. It's so cool that there's so many good talents out there earning a living in the wrestling business, and I am really, really happy they get, because they were doing what I got to do.
Right.
I got to finally, unlikely, make my way in. I thought that my job with Bill Watts and Leroy McGurk was going to last about a summer, like 3 months. Then I go back to college and graduate. Unfortunately, to the chagrin of my parents, I didn't graduate. I needed a semester, and that 3-month gig, Joe, lasted 40-plus years, and we're still talking about it.
Right. Well, there's a couple of things there. The first thing is it's amazing with indie wrestling right now. I mean, when I started calling indie wrestling with this company, or with this, promotion here, local, they'd do about 50, 100 people, and, over the last couple of years, I've seen it grow to where they put on shows with 600 people, and you got the Hardys were showing up last year, and when they were hot, and just, I've never seen independent wrestling. I can remember even in '99 going to independent wrestling, and there'd be 20 people there sometimes, but it seems locally now there's always at least 100 people in the seats. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about that with working with New Japan. There's this, people don't really believe it's possible, because they think, well, how can Jim Ross be working with them and then working with WWE? Because you can still go back and do things with WWE again, right? They'll still ask you to be there even through this signing with Access?
Oh, yeah, I'm under contract with WWE. They have a specific number of dates that they have the option to use or not. And, I've done a couple of matches at the NXT TakeOver shows, which is a blast, really a blast. Love that. Love their passion, love their desire to be great and get to the next level, those kids that are wrestling, and men and women. I did the Mae Young, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
If they do if WWE does a UK show, which they've been talking about, it's just a matter of getting all the ducks in order and the logistics handled. But if they do a weekly UK show, I think I'm going to work on that with Nigel McGuinness, which I look forward to. I like working with Nigel.
Yeah.
So it's good, but I have no issues with. There's not been any issues with New Japan. That I can tell, at least I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I work for Access TV. I don't work for New Japan. I work for a television company, and but the WWE's just been very, very generous. My wife was a big part of my success there, and Vince knows that. And Vince is a very wise man. He knows what's going on. He knows how many of the boys that we brought to our home there in Connecticut for a home-cooked meal and do their laundry or whatever when they're on the road and passing through. She was a big asset for us in a lot of ways. And she also was so wonderful to interact with a lot of the male talent's wives that went a long way in solidifying relationships and so forth. So Vince has been great to me. People say, "Oh, JR's kissing ass." Well, you can say whatever you want. I don't care. It don't bother me any. I'm just telling you the truth, Joe. And the truth is, the Access TV deal would not have happened if Vince McMahon had not blessed it. He knows it meant a lot to me. He knows that the paydays are nice, which is another issue. But the main thing, I like doing it. It gives me a destination. It keep me busy. And there's no manual that I've found yet on day 100 of the grieving process. You do this. Day 101, you do this. There's nothing like that. So he knows what makes me happy, and he knows what takes me away from the sadness, and that's doing what I love to do, and that's called wrestling matches.
Right, and I mean, it is good, obviously, to get out and keep on that roll. And I mean, everybody was just, devastated from what I heard, when we heard about your wife. And I can even remember being 8 years old when my dad died, and we were on that roll for years. Keeping us busy. It almost seemed like forgot it happened because you're just so busy doing everything. But if you weren't busy doing everything else, I don't know what you would do. And
You're right.
And saying that, recently we had some news come out, Jim, about Rich Swann and some kind of a domestic issue or an issue happening, and he may be suspended from WWE indefinitely. He may not come back depending on what's going on with the news and the facts in the case. When stuff like that happens now, it's so much different than I think back in the day. A lot of times, what was the difference if something like this were to happen in 1998 or versus nowadays? Is it something where they would monitor it to see what happened, or how much attention was the company paying to domestic issues like this back then?
Well, we were paying attention to every issue of that regard, and we were also we paid attention with those situations. If you have an arrest of any kind, you had to address it, and certainly things are different, but any arrest has got to be addressed. I would say, I don't know Rich Swann. I know I've watched his work. He's very talented. I am a no tolerance person regarding domestic abuse. No place for it. No excuse for it. A man should never strike a woman, and vice versa, quite frankly. But I would probably, the only thing I would say is that I would not disconnect from the talent. I would not have done that. I would not let him be on an island by himself. I would keep in communication with him, because you want to, if he's lost a little bit, the best thing that can happen is that he finds himself and he rights his wrongs and has a productive life. Whether he can have it with the company or not would remain to be seen. But I certainly would not leave him on an island alone. I'm sure he's not. Hopefully somebody's communicating with him, because it's not as if he, committed a murder. And I'm not downgrading whatsoever domestic abuse, but you got to stay connected with a guy, and I think you got to keep encouraging him to get better. And if he has an issue, let's get it fixed, and then let's take it from there. But whether he works for them or not, I'm sure the company is concerned about his welfare and his future, and they will make the right decision. But if it comes out that he's guilty, it's just going to be hard to get him back on the roster, especially in today's climate, which I agree with, quite frankly. I think that we're all this. Hey, boy, now's not the right time to be accused of something like that. So I wish him the best, and his wife. I think I met her one time. Nice lady, nice young lady, wrestler. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, she's. Hopefully, wish them the best, but. You can't tolerate it. We should never tolerate it. But in today's world, with the rawness of it, you just can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. You should never have ignored it. And I don't think we would have ignored it. But it's just it's a heightened sense of awareness now for matters like that.
Would you think WWE would continue to help him if he did have an issue going forward after, even if they fired him or he got? I know that recently Justin Credible was helped, and that's different. That's a recovery thing. But is this something that they'll look at as trying to get help for, even if they let him go as well?
Well, anger management, Joe, is like getting rehab for a drug or alcohol issue. It's still an issue that can be addressed. Most likely can be amended and solved, but you can't leave those guys out there on an island and desert them. At least that's my take on it. I'm a human that's made plenty of mistakes. You read my book, Slobber Knocker, you see a lot of them in there. So, but I learned from those situations. I learned from them, and I got up when I got my ass knocked down, which is many, many times. Then I got back up, and I think you got to give the guy a helping hand to get back up and correct his wrongs. That's how I would say it. But WWE has helped a lot of guys that have been long since gone from the company with their alumnus. And I think they helped Jeff Jarrett with his recent alcohol rehab,
right.
And others, which I think is a good thing. I mean, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and I think that they'll do the same thing with Rich Swann. If he needs anger management, if he needs some sort of counseling, I would venture to say, I'm guessing now, that they'll be right there for him.
Well, and moving on to the book, I have read quite a bit of it. I've also downloaded the audiobook, too, because I kind of mix it up a little bit. I lose track sometimes. I love the way the book starts, and you kind of starts out with WrestleMania 15. I related to a lot of stuff you talked about with trying to, get into wrestling and how you got into wrestling, and, hearing the women talk about a match that was going to be happening and asking to go to that and being at your first match, and just all that stuff was so identifiable. Any wrestling fan can identify with the beginning of that book right away. So I definitely recommend either Amazon or buying the book if you want to listen to audiobook. I love it. when you record the audiobook, what's that? Because I want to know, because I've done a lot of voiceover and stuff. It's nerve-wracking for me because I got to keep doing it myself to go back and pause if I make a mistake and stop. And it's just hours of speaking and making sure I spoke it the right way. What was that like for you recording your own book on audiobook?
Very challenging. Probably I've never done anything from a quote-unquote performance area than reading this book. Because I read the book, I did the audio version reluctantly at first, because I suspected I was going to have some trouble with it, and I did. And it took me probably 2 or 3 times longer to read it than I should have, because I was so cautious. I wanted to be really on the money. And the other thing was, when I started reading the parts about meeting my wife Jan and things like that, it got very emotional. And I stopped down many times and I had to take a walk, just clear my head for a second and come back and re-attack it. So it was really, really challenging. But I have gotten amazing feedback on that audio book. People have, for whatever reason, it's in my voice, but it's me.
Yeah.
I lived those experiences. I was there. I was the guy that you met,
Yeah.
So it was challenging, Joe. I'm not going to, I can't feel like a champion. I did the best I could. It's getting great reviews, and so I think we did good on it. That's to your ear to decide, and so it was hard. It was the hardest thing I'd done from a performance standpoint because of the emotional investment in the whole story. I'm talking about my late mother, my late father, my wife had just been killed a few weeks earlier. It was really challenging to stay focused and do the book justice. I think we tried that, but again, your ear will determine yay or nay on that one.
I love it. It feels like you're sitting down with me to tell me the whole story personally. That's why I think the audiobook does so well. It's so natural. But you're going to be here this weekend in Boston at the Laugh Factory. Tell me about what's going to go on over there. What's happening with the show this weekend?
I'll be at Laugh Boston on Saturday afternoon. The VIP meet and greet, tickets still available at 1 o'clock. The show starts at 3 o'clock. And Jeremy Borash and I are kind of teaming up. He's the MC, and we'll do Q&A, tell some stories, and Jeremy has some fun. Tickets are at laughboston.com, and by the way, Joe, they'll be available the day of the show too at Laugh Boston. So if people can't go online or don't want to go online, you can buy tickets at the venue in advance, including the day of. So a lot of fun. It's my last ringside show of the year. We're going to try to go out with a big bang. It's been, like you said, a very interesting year for me, and we're kind of putting a bow on it in Boston on Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely, and I'll be out there too, guys. So everybody check out the website. Get the tickets now. VIP session is available. Doors, general admission, whatever you can do. I'll be hanging out probably too, scoping around the place. I don't think I've seen JR in Boston since the DX public workout. No, it was WrestleMania 14 in Boston. I was at the Fleet Center before it was the Garden. And, that was a momentous. That's where the Austin era began. Yeah.
Everybody said.
Well, Jim, I want to thank everybody again, and I want to thank Jim Ross for being here on the Joe Cronin Show. Follow me, guys, at Real Joe Cronin. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/Joe Cronin Show. But more importantly, come see us this Saturday, December 16th. Jim Ross. The tickets are available still on Jim Ross's website, jrsbarbecue.com. Go pick up the VIP and come hang out with us this Saturday night.